Vietnam is a diverse country, stretching from high mountain ranges in the north to coastal beaches in the south. It's a place where farming communities and modern cities coexist. What they have in common is this: tourism and tradition are tightly interwoven. Urban areas feel like a beautiful jumble. Intergenerational homes, family run temples, daily vegetable markets, and ancestral grave sites all are nestled side by side. Without strict zoning laws, visitors are pulled into the flow of everyday life, seeing, smelling, hearing, tasting it all at once. From the floating fishing villages of Ha Long Bay to the limestone caves of Ninh Binh to the French Vietnamese architecture in Hanoi, every region tells a story. Modernization is pulling at foundational threads of cultural preservation. Ha Long cruise ships and established floating fishing villages occupy the same space. When tourism forgets its place, it stops being a bridge and becomes a cage, trapping cultures in still life for outside admiration. And in Sapa, a North Highland town known for its breathtaking rice terraces and Hmong hill tribes, the story of cultural preservation takes center stage. Tourism at its best is a gesture of curiosity, not consumption. Tourism and tradition don't stand apart in Vietnam. They're overlapped, intertwined, and transform each other. And nowhere is this more visible than in the northern hills of Sapa, where the cultural identity is stitched, carved, and sold, sometimes all in the same place. Sapa sits in the northern fold of Vietnam, mist laced and deeply textured, but its story begins far from here, in the chill of colonial ambition. In 1887, Sapa became part of French Indochina, and soon after, French colonists carved their presence into these mountains, building military outposts and villas in the mist and bringing with them European aesthetics that would echo through the decades. Meanwhile, the Hmong, an ethnic group from the highlands of China, had already begun their southward migration, setting in the steep slopes of Vietnam in the 18th and 19th centuries, seeking autonomy and fertile land. And what follows was not just cultural fusion, it was entanglement. French architectural construction collided with indigenous historical designs, and still today, Sapa wears both legacies in its cityscape: carved balconies along woven textile hemp. As a traveler, I came here with questions, not just about what I'd find, but how I'd feel finding it. It was hard to grasp family altars with Buddhist, Catholic, and ancestral photos all in the same place. Vietnam was a crazy mix of so many different concepts. Next stop was Paulo's Hotel. It curved along the hillside, mimicking the valley's natural flow inside. The details caught me: Hmong embroidery on the staff uniforms, immense tapestries draped in the lobby, and most memorable, local artisans invited to weave and speak with the guests. This wasn't a museum or a market, it was a present, living, breathing. Women with indigo stained hands spinning stories in thread. Next stop was Hotel de la Copole. Could not have been more different. Grand, flamboyant, like walking into a dream staged by Dior. French inspired luxury draped over Hmong motifs of embroidered spirals, metal suns, tile crosses embedded the fancy hallways. It was opulent with a nod to heritage, and oddly it worked. Whimsy and respect in the same place. I wandered the halls, surrounded by photographs of elders and intricate tile work underfoot, wondering, was this appropriation or admiration? In the center of the hotel, an immense green space transported you away from busy city life. As I looked upon the spindle designed columns, there was nothing that could connect you to the reality that you were currently in Vietnam. Then came the reset, Eco Palms House, a homestay with clay walled huts, no TV, no spa, just the sound of rice paddies breathing below, and the smell of wood smoke drifting up from the valley. It was still curated, sure, but it offered something softer, intimacy, a view into a living tradition of a family run homestay, not just a themed backdrop, but a home shared with tourists for generations. Grandparents and grandchildren provided lively conversation. My dinner companions often were well behaved, adorable pets. I didn't judge these places against each other. Each revealed a different chapter of Sapa's story, just like each stitch in a tapestry carries its own weight. My fourth hotel was modern and playful, a village of cute cottages dressed in traditional patterns. But beneath the surface, it felt more like a backdrop for wedding photos than a living cultural experience. Pretty, yes, but curated for Instagram. Being close to town, urban sprawl was apparent. Hammering from construction killed the chill vibe. On the hills above, large cranes loomed at the mountainside, becoming a wall of condominiums. As people seek the high altitude coolness in the midst of Vietnam's sweltering summer heat, these urban developments are impacting the traditional quality of life, even though the valleys are protected farmland. The highland runoff, due to overuse of concrete, is breaking down the long established rice terraces that have existed for generations. Then there was Silk Path, colonial French design again, softened by Hmong influence. The lobby was gilded, the dining room served local black chicken and salmon hot pot, and the Hmong faces gazed at me from silver framed photographs while I ate beneath crystal chandeliers. The contrast struck me as harsh. A month's rent here in Sapa could be covered by 3 nights at this hotel. Did I feel guilty? Not exactly. I was there to have an experience and learn. But I couldn't ignore the economics. I'm American. My dollar stretches far. Hospitality here is gracious always. But it sits on top of an uneven exchange, luxury for me, livelihood for others. Still, I wasn't an intruder, at least not intentionally. In each place, I was welcomed, not watched, spoken to, not sold to. And when I filmed artisans dyeing indigo or stitching new life into old symbols, I did so with permission and with gratitude. What struck me the most in Sapa wasn't just the beauty, but repetition. The same Hmong historical symbols, crosses, hands, animals, suns, appeared again and again on hotel walls, on jackets in tour shops, on blankets drying in the sun. But only some were real or authentic. Only some were made with care, with intention, with knowledge of what they represented passed down by generations. At Cat Cat, I saw performances, stage dances, tribal costumes for rent, long rows of stalls with products that looked handmade but weren't, mass production painted with a tribal brush. Unlike Cat Cat, but farther out into the villages, I met women who spun their own hemp, dyed it with local plants, and stitched stories with fingers calloused from years of doing the real thing. That's where the heartbeat was. It reminded me of the Pacific Northwest, my home. Our own local tribes faced the same dilemma, culture flattened into souvenirs, symbols removed from stories, sacred turned into syllable, and still the Haman they persist. As the trip came to an end, I realized I hadn't collected any souvenirs. At least, not the kind that you pack. I paid people I filmed and interviewed. Instead, I carried footage of women weaving. I was welcomed into their homes. I felt the clay underfoot and the sound of wind through the rice terraces, the memory of hotel lobbies filled with embroidery and loom work, and questions. more than answers about preservation, respect, and responsibility. Did Cat Cat Village take the pressure away from the Hill Tribe communities? Or was it just a prepackaged culture for profit and tourist consumption? Maybe it begins here with noticing, with filming, with asking the harder questions, even when you're sipping tea at a really cool Instagrammable cafe in the middle of nowhere. Sapa's not a set, it's not a performance. It's a living history with stories embedded in cloth, food, architecture, and song. And if you slow down long enough, you can see it everywhere. When we travel, we're invited, not entitled, to witness someone else's way of life. The stories we enter aren't blank slates, but intricate weaving of history, trauma, survival, and pride. Tourism at its best can be a bridge, a way to understand and support those narratives. But when we forget our role as guests, that bridge collapses into something extractive. When tourism forgets its place, it stops being a bridge. It becomes a cage, trapping cultures in a still life for outside admiration. Souvenirs, photos, costumes, and performance can become props in this process, flattening real people and practices into digestible fragments. That's where cultural appropriation begins. When the elements of culture, especially from marginalized or colonized groups, are used by outsiders without understanding, context, or respect. A Japanese person wearing a Hawaiian shirt is adopting a global fashion trend, not borrowing sacred or symbolic garments. A tourist wearing a kimono without knowing its meaning or donning it as an exotic costume might unintentionally erase its cultural weight. So, what does responsibility look like? Context. Learn the story behind the item. Is it ceremonial, everyday, symbolic? Context. Was it made by someone from that culture? Are they being compensated fairly? Credit. Acknowledge the source. Don't pass it off as your own discovery. Contribution. Support the community, not just the product. Stay at local owned places. Tip artisans and avoid mass market knockoffs. Shop at local farmer markets. Cultural exchange is not inherently harmful. In fact, it can be beautiful when rooted in mutual respect and reciprocity. But we must be willing to ask, am I honoring a living culture, or am I collecting an image of it for my own reflection? In the end, the question isn't about should I participate, it's how and with whom in mind. In Sapa, as in many cultural crossroads, this question isn't theoretical, it's lived. Behind every hand dyed cloth and indigo drenched panel is a lineage of craftsmanship. These aren't just souvenirs, they're signatures of survival. Understanding the history gives us respect and visibility to the marginalized culture. These cultures are what bring the beauty and the nuance to every country we visit.